Fry. Now recognize my fellow Florida Gator. Go Gators, Miss Lee. She's recognized for her 5 minutes of questioning. Thank you. I had to get that in. I've got my tie on today.
A great
Thank
day
you.
for the Gators in the Capitol today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for being here today to help us shape a thoughtful, forward-looking approach to AI policy. Artificial intelligence is not just the technology of the future, it is already transforming the way that we live, work, and govern, and it is reshaping nearly every sector of our economy. The question before us is not whether to act, it is how to act wisely. So as policymakers, we have two responsibilities. One is to protect the public from real risks, but second, to ensure that American innovation continues to lead the world. Those goals are not mutually exclusive. In fact, the right policy framework can achieve both. So I appreciate you all being here today to help us strike that balance. I'd like to begin, Mr. Bhargava, to pick up on one of the elements in your testimony about policy frameworks, and specifically this. What is your view on requiring AI developers to use standardized documentation tools like model cards to disclose purpose and limitations and training data?
Yes, absolutely. So the model card concept, I think, was originated by Google, which created the Transformer paper and has been involved in the space as well. I think those sort of rules, frameworks are actually very helpful, and it's also great that they're coming from industry. They're coming from people who are in the weeds, building the models, testing the models, and can have insights that really make sense. So the four general areas where I think there could be frameworks created, and I'd love to work with Congress on it, is one, looking how you gather data, so there can be ways to disclose and have the transparency that my colleague here talked about to gather data. The second is evaluating how models are trained and having folks kind of report the framework around that. The third is the outputs and testing of models. So this is both actually algorithmic testing, but also human testing. So you could have different AI models testing each other from third parties, for example. This would save costs and be an easy way to create a framework, a guideline. And in addition, I think always we'll need humans in the loop as well. And then fourth, having companies, including startups, write up what are the downstream effects of their technology, really showing their thoughtfulness. So everything I'm recommending here is things we do at General Catalyst, 200-person or so company. It's things we do at GC on all of our investments. So I do think there are frameworks that can be put in place, but it's really important, the 2 points, that one, the framework is coming from the federal government, not the state governments, and so it can be consistent and easy to understand. And two, the frameworks have to be developed with industry. I think one of the things Europe has not done enough of to date is creating these with the actual market participants, with startups, with entrepreneurs. And so we would welcome having more discussions with General Catalyst, the GC Institute, to come up with responsible frameworks, but also ones that our startups can get behind.
What should policymakers be careful not to do when designing transparency requirements, particularly for early stage or open source developers?
They should make sure to do it with the startups themselves and the companies. Really what we do not want them to do is just create it in a vacuum, to throw in whatever words sound good or beating up big tech, et cetera, and just making a statement. Like, this is about actually creating the right policy. So I think talking with the startups, with the market participants, with people in industry is really, really important. It's not a political statement. We all want to come to this framework, and getting the input from startups, I think, would be extremely helpful in getting to the right framework.
Getting back to that framework model card disclosure concept, is it your view that those types of disclosures should be voluntary, required for only certain high-risk applications, or broadly mandated across the industry?
I think they should be required as long as it's minimalistic. So the requirements have to make sense. You can't ask for these massive audits on a model and then when our startups comply, not get back to them for 12 months because you don't really know how to evaluate the material they sent you, for example. So I think these can be required frameworks on the federal level, but they have to make sense, and there has to be the agency there as well and the people in government to be on the other side having a conversation with what these frameworks should be. It needs to be a real partnership approach, and it needs to be simple.
Mr. Thier, let me move to you. I'd like to get your thoughts on this. Do you support directing NIST to develop voluntary AI standards or best practices similar to what it did for cybersecurity?
Yes, and the good news, Congresswoman, is that the NIST has already done a lot of that heavy lifting. And this has been a very bipartisan and widely agreed to process, a multi-stakeholder process as it's called. A lot of different players came together and formulated a really good set of standards for AI risk management, for cybersecurity, privacy. That's important work. And I think obviously Congress can build on that and talk about how to go beyond that with certain types of policies that were considered in this Congress last session and will be considered again, I'm sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you, I appreciate